I just messed up my order here. Oh, you're doing it. Okay, that's fine.
I barely put these ones down.
Okay, this is the one you need for tonight. These two over here. These are from prior presentations. If you have not been here in the last couple of months and want one of the handouts, you can collect one of them.
So it's pretty easy. So you can see, you can look from up there, you can look from behind you, and you can see from here. So whatever you're most comfortable with. And then,
Otherwise, I'm gazing off.
yeah. Unfortunately, we don't have the clicker that they used to have broke.
So we just use this
Just hit enter.
or the arrow.
Yeah.
Once you start it, you have to actually start it first.
Should be there. It was there.
Plans are everything. Let's take a look at the original patent. That's fine. That's fine. The bottom?
Yeah. So enter, enter, enter. Or page up. Page up or page down.
Those will work too.
Okay, whatever.
I'm a left and right guy.
Okay.
Video games.
All right.
Whatever you do, that's a microphone, so just don't bang on it or I'll go deaf.
I will not bang on the microphone.
Okay.
Maybe the drums.
But a lot of people come over here and they start. Actually, Adrian used to do that.
I'm more Italian than I am a drum banger. Speaking with the hands.
Oh, yeah. Expression.
I'm Danny, by the way. I'm running video from the back here live.
I'm David.
You're live on YouTube right now.
Okay, last call
right now?
for papers, and we're going to go ahead and get started in just a
There's a million
second.
people not
We haven't
watching.
started
Anyone
yet.
have all the papers they need? All right. So if you're not sure where you are at the San Diego Inventors Forum. If you didn't intend to be here, we're going to shut the door and you're stuck anyway, so welcome. How many of you are here for the first time tonight? Anyone? First time? Just one? Two? Tom, put your hand out. Just one? Okay, welcome. You have you came with a guest. Great. Thank you. Thanks for coming. As you know, we're here at AMN Healthcare. They are our host each month, providing us with this great meeting space. So we always want to show our appreciation and thanks to AMN Healthcare. Tonight, we're kind of going to get right into it because I have a few things I want to cover, and then our guest speaker, David, has quite a bit of information he wants to share with you. So we're not going to do a whole lot of preemptive talking. We're going to jump right into things, and then afterward, we'll do a couple of our traditional meeting, kind of who needs who, and get some feedback from you on some other things. And I have some other stuff I'd like to share with you, but we want to get to the meat of the things first. So, with that said, tonight's topic is about entity formations. How many of you have already formed your entity, your business? 1, 2, 3. Good. Do you mind indicating what type of entity you formed? Was it an LLC, sole proprietorship, partnership?
LLC.
LLC?
LLC.
Sole proprietorship?
LLC.
Perfect. Okay. So for those of you who haven't and don't know what those things are or what they mean or how they pertain to you, that's what tonight's presentation is about. It's important to choose and select the right entity for a variety of reasons, some of which I've listed here, and David is going to go over a lot of others. The important thing is really, as an inventor, if you haven't already, you are a named inventor on either an issued or potentially issued patent. How many of you have issued patents in your name already? How many of you have filed for patents? Okay, so whether you're in the filing stage, meaning you're working your way through the prosecution system to obtain a patent, or you have a patent issued, you are the inventor on that patent, and you may be working with or have worked with others on that invention, and you may have a co-inventor, one or more. The idea is that just regardless of all these other reasons, once you begin to monetize your intellectual property, specifically your patents, your trademarks, your copyrights, and other forms of intellectual property, at some point you're going to have to consider forming an entity and making sure that you choose the right one for a select number of reasons. But one thing to consider, regardless of where you are in the patent prosecution phase, that means whether you're still in the filing, the processing phase and haven't had a patent issued just yet, or you have had a patent issue, at whatever stage you're in that process, at any point in which you are going to or have licensed your product, then things begin to really change for you. That relates to the ownership and specifically licensing of the patent, and with respect to the USPTO, what kind of fees you're going to be subject to at that particular point. How many of you intend to license your product your invention via licensing? Okay. How many of you have already done it? Okay, good. So this is going to be good for you. So what happens is, for the majority of, okay, why aren't you going? Hang on. Come on. Sorry here. Not sure why this is hanging up. All right, I'm gonna have to get through this here in a second. For the most part, most of you have filed or in the process of filing your patent application and or prosecuting. You're paying fees to the patent office based on either an individual or in some cases maybe as a micro entity. And really that means some of you are paying full bore, full cost for your fees as they pertain to the patent office. If you're filing as a small entity or micro entity, the fees decrease up until the point in which you no longer qualify for that particular status. What happens is at a certain point you go from becoming or qualifying as an individual inventor as it relates to that particular patent to another status once you license that. So it's critical to understand when that happens, because if it happens during the early stages and maybe you've paid some initial fees as an individual person, you're paying the lesser of the fees. But at some point, once that license agreement triggers, then depending on who you license to, that's going to change your status, maybe to a small entity or to a large corporation, depending on who it is you're partnering with or licensing with. And at that point, wherever you are in the process, the fees from that point change. So if you were paying the least amount of fees in the beginning, at some point you may end up paying the highest level of fees. And so that's really important to understand, because as you're going through the process, there's a number of fees, and I have a chart here, so I got to figure out what's going on with this. But there's a number of fees that you pay, mostly up to the point of issuance, and then after issuance you have maintenance fees and some other things. And those fees can get fairly steep depending where you are in the process. They start off larger after issuance, and then they diminish over time. But how much those fees are is going to vary depending on your entity status. Yep.
So in other words, if you're an individual and you license to a large entity, then you have to pay the large entity fees after that?
Potentially, yes.
Yes, you can be required to do that. Large entity is greater than 500 employed individuals full-time. So a lot of entities qualify as small, because not everybody's got 500 people. But it does happen a lot in the biotechnology industry. Sometimes smaller companies license out to larger, and instantly the fees increase substantially. They almost double.
So that if you go to a different company and licensed to them, you're automatically a large entity because you,
Only if the number of employees that you have plus the number of employees of the licensee exceed 500, you become a large entity.
They add them together.
I know the 500.
Aggregate.
Pardon?
They add them together.
Yeah.
What if there's multiple licensees at two different companies? Does the total number of employees affect that?
Yes. Yes, it does. Also note that in your license agreement, this is something that you or your attorney would have considered. So the bottom line is you're probably not going to be paying those fees anyway. Or you shouldn't be, let's put it that way, unless your attorney's not thinking straight on that, so yeah.
Yeah, so that's while I try to figure out what's going on with the presentation here, I'm going to restart it. But that,
What about international licenses? Do they go to these other countries to find out how many employees over there? Or?
That I don't know.
Okay.
I can't answer that question, I have no idea. I don't know.
Could the company doing the licensing like create an entity that has one employee just to keep the fees low for everyone?
what was the question?
That's creative. That's creative. I would be concerned about trying to commit fraud before
Google
the
has like an
USPTO.
intellectual property LLC, like just.
Well, I mean, that's certainly, yeah, I'm sure there's ways that people might be able to do that. Just recognize that in the event that it's determined that you are committing fraud before the United States Patent and Trademark Office, that you could lose your patent altogether. So it's probably not the best idea. I mean, you're paying a little bit more money, you know, 1,000 instead of 500, let's say, for a 500. Here's the way they work. Okay, large entity fee is, let's say, for 1,000. If you're a small entity, it's 500. If you're micro entity, it's 250. It works that way. It's 1 to 1/2 to 1/4. So it's not like you're paying an enormous amount, but you definitely don't want to try and start muddling.
I just meant like the way the companies avoid taxes by setting up companies and routing their products. Do they do the same with intellectual property so that it would benefit everyone?
Yeah, that's this level.
Yeah.
I don't really want to get there. I mean, you know, you're down here, so I wouldn't go up there. But there's always that possibility.
No, but I think it can add up because let's say you have a wall patent. Now once you license on one deal, the USPTO is coming at that whole wall going to get jacked up.
A what patent?
A wall of patents. Let's say you got multiple patents. Okay.
A family of
Yes, a family
of patents, and the family of patents is being licensed.
It could be one.
Okay, I don't understand that.
So would if you license just one individual, would the everything that you got granted get jacked up in price as well?
Oh no. It's by patent application.
Okay.
It's whatever. Yeah, it's one invention per application. If that application is licensed, it applies only there. Okay. It doesn't attach to you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, but it's,
That's a good question,
well,
now that I understood it.
and while we figure out what's going on with this thing, it was working earlier.
What are you confused about? Ask the question.
Yeah,
you originally said.
but it's not feeding up there for some reason.
And they're a large entity, you have to pay large entities. Okay.
It was working fine earlier,
That
I tested
application will
it.
have to be paid, anything associated with that application would now be large entity fees, correct?
Okay, but if I license to another entity, and they're not large.
Is it the same application? It's a different application.
It's a completely different patent, completely different, has nothing to do with this.
Then that's treated however that is. How big is that company that you're licensing it to?
Okay, that's not how I understood it before.
Okay,
Now I
yeah,
understand.
no, yeah. It doesn't attach to you. It attaches to the technology you're licensing. Make sense?
Yeah.
So, while I still try to figure out why this thing is glitching on us, you talked about, you know, the license agreement, right? And so, it's very important that whoever you're working with in terms of your license agreement, that they understand, one, what your current status is, and you clearly articulate to them what your plans are for your total strategy with respect to licensing and the types of entities that you plan to license to, so that they have a full understanding. because when you draft a license agreement, depending on who it is that you're partnering with, one of the things that you will determine is who's going to pay what fees with respect to any sort of intellectual property management, if you will. So depending on where you are in the cycle, you can say, okay, I will, as the inventor, I will maintain all responsibility and financial costs for the continued patent prosecution, including future maintenance fees. Or you can put in the license agreement that the other party that you're contracting with is going to be responsible for that. And so either way, it's important for you both to know what that schedule of fees is going to potentially look like, so that, one, you ensure that they are getting paid, because speaking to one point that he said, one is if you don't pay the correct fees, that in itself can cause you to lose your patent. And later on, if you don't pay the maintenance fees, that could cause you to lose your patent as well. So you want to make sure that you're paying the right fees when they're due in the right amount, and making sure that, again, that's part of your agreement. I have no idea what's going on with this thing tonight. So, you guys like that little character that's up there? I don't know what that is.
Does anybody have any questions on maintenance fees?
Yes, continue to answer random questions
Everybody
while
understand what maintenance fees are?
Yes, how often are they though?
Okay, you have 3 maintenance fees, one at 3.5 years, one at 7.5 years, and one at 11.5 years from date of issuance, okay? So that basically continues the patent in enforcement for you. If you don't pay those fees, the government believes that you have decided that you are done with your patent and it now goes to the public, okay? So, you have a 6-month grace period, so it's 3.5 to 4 years, 7.5 to 8 years, 11.5 to 12 years to make those payments. If you pay them within the 3.5, 7.5, and 11.5 period, you have whatever amount it is they designate. If you go within the 6-month grace period, they charge you a little bit more. Those fees are small to begin with, like $1,500 for 3.5 year maintenance fee, to about $3,000 for the 7.5, up to $5,000 plus for the 11.5. Why? Because the agreement that you have with the government when you file a patent application is they will allow you to exploit your technology if at the end of 20 years you give it to the public. That's the give and the take. The sooner you give it up, the sooner the public gets to use it. So the government is more interested in getting it to the public than keeping it with you. That's why the fees go up so substantially over time. So.
What do you mean by giving it to the public? The public's already...
Once a patent application, once a patent application has gone or run its term, and assuming you have paid all the maintenance fees and so on and so forth, so the 20 years is gone, it's in the public domain. You can no longer enforce a right to say that's mine and it's not yours. You don't have that right anymore after 20 years.
So
the people have it. You can make it. You can make it. Anybody can make your invention after 20 years. That's the exchange. If you don't pay a maintenance fee, let's say it's 7.5 years, and I'm going to qualify this, but assuming you don't pay it 7.5 years, your patent is deemed to be abandoned, which means anybody else can now make your product without being sued by you. Oh, except, and I will tell you what the exception is that you can always go to the Patent Trademark and say, oh my God, I forgot to pay the 7.5 year fee. So I'm going to pay it now. The government's like, oh, okay, well here, if you give us a little bit extra more money, we'll allow you to do that. Except for the guy down the street who says, oh good, it's off patent now, I can start producing it, and has started producing it, now he's screwed. Okay, so just be aware that even though somebody doesn't pay a maintenance fee, and I've had this many times in the pharmaceutical industry, we watch this very carefully, because they'll constantly ask me, okay, so is this diagnostic off the market? I can say, they didn't pay the maintenance, 7.5 year maintenance fee, but I can't tell you that they're not going to pay it in the next 2 years, because they might. And if they do, then all that research that we've done to develop that diagnostic to sell for our company just went down the toilet. So, you know, you have to be very careful when it comes to that.
David?
Yeah.
What is a File 8, Section 15.
What is a what?
All I know is it's called a File 8, Section 15.
What is it in context with?
It is in context of assuring a trademark is
Okay.
something.
Well,
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
okay.
I don't know the answer.
Well, I'll qualify right now. Since I am not an attorney, I cannot practice law in the areas of trademarks. So while I have done it for corporations, because when I'm in the corporate structure, I can do that, and I've gotten a lot of trademarks for companies, I can't do that on my own because I'm not an attorney. So that's probably why I didn't understand it. A trademark. Oh, I know exactly what that is. I don't know. So.
Thank you.
Just a question to clarify what you said. So if somebody's already gone into production, you don't have any rights to bar that person who's gone into production after you lapsed.
No.
If it's gone more than the grace period.
But
is it just up to that company, or is it now in public domain?
That's the problem. Okay, so here's what happens. Somebody doesn't pay it, and they come to me and they say, oh, I really forgot to pay this. What am I going to do? I said, well, what's the time period when you weren't supposed to pay it? They say 2 years. Well, I'm going to have to file with the commissioner, and I'm going to have to ask the commissioner, will he accept this payment to, reinstitute your patent? I don't know that the commissioner is going to say yes or no. There's a certain period of time that just after 2 years, it's, I don't know, could be 50-50. But up until about 2 years, the commissioner usually says, oh yeah, sure, no problem. But I can't, there's no guarantees. He might say, okay, after 5 years. If I were to send a document to the commissioner petitioning him to reestablish the patent after 5 years, I would have to give him an argument like, well, my patient had cancer, or my client had cancer, and the client could not sign any documents or anything while they were having chemo or whatever, and that might be good enough. See, that's why it's so tricky. It's very, very tricky.
So then that interloper would be barred. If the commissioner says, okay, we'll do it, then anyone who
He can come right after that guy who's been producing it. Yeah.
Even if it is on the market.
Even if they go onto the market, they could even have even more problems, because then that person could probably seek remedy for the amounts that you may have received. So again, that's the tricky part. In the pharmaceutical industry, what we normally do is we just wait until 20 years unless there's some other reason. We wait to 20 years, and when the 20 years is up, then we're on our way. We don't have to worry
How
about
does
it.
the public know that somebody hasn't paid their fee, that you may, is there a...
Yeah, I go right online to the maintenance fee area of the USPTO.
When something is due and you
Absolutely.
can see if someone...
Yeah, it will tell you whether they paid or they didn't. I do that all the time.
It's that precise, so if
Yeah.
someone really wants that,
Yeah.
use that product, they can see
Yeah.
the date that it should be...
Sure, I'll go in, I'll log your patent number and your patent application serial number, and it will tell me whether or not you paid the 7.5-year maintenance fee or not, and when you were supposed to pay it and you didn't. So, yeah, I get all that information.
This is just comment. It's wonderful that we know the nut and bolt of this, but I think this stuff is handled by docketing, right? I mean, you're gonna have somebody that docket this stuff and send you an email at,
Well, if you're waiting for the United States Patent and Trademark Office to docket for you, I would
You're going to be in
recommend
trouble.
that. I would, if you're working with an attorney,
yeah, that's,
I presume that the attorney will do that for you. I notify my clients. If a client of mine has an issued patent, let's say David Schmor's patent issues right now, but David's not really active with me after that, I will send him a letter saying, Dave, I'm glad I could help. You got your patent. And oh, by the way, your 3.5 years, 7.5 year, and 11.5 years are these dates docketed. And then Dave has that document to say what,
Yeah.
And if the office doesn't communicate with him, he can then go online, because I'll give him the website, and he can check it out himself to make sure I've got those dates right.
Right.
And that's what I do. So.
Because sometimes, the date can be overwhelming if you got 3 or 4, in the pipelines, and
I've had to handle patent portfolios in excess of over 100 patents, not including their foreign associated parts. So it becomes a docketing nightmare sometimes, yeah. So.
All right, so we might be back in business here. This thing is being very glitchy tonight, so I hope we can get through the rest of this. But I had a slide that I was going to show, and it kind of shows you the contrast between the fees. Those fees can change often, so the recommendation is to go to the USPT.gov website. There's a host of information on there. It will outline all of the fees, the variations in the fee schedule, so that's obviously where your source is to obtain this information. So again, stay on top of it as you progress through not only your patent prosecution, but then your potential licensing program, okay? So, before we get any more glitchy, I want to go ahead and turn things over to our guest speaker. David is a practicing attorney. I've got a list of his credentials here for you. He has agreed to come up and give you some more in-depth information about how to select the right entity and accompanying the workshop, excuse me, the worksheet that we've given you. So, David, you want to come on up?
Okay, let's hope this thing isn't any more glitchy than it has to be, right?
That was trouble.
Okay. I will try to be brief but thorough. And if you would please hold questions till the question section, we'll get through this more efficiently. Most people don't like lawyers. I'm not terribly fond of lawyers either. Luckily, my friend David is not a lawyer. Most of my friends are not lawyers. They're sheet metal workers, construction guys, pilots, teachers, doctors. Shakespeare had it pretty much right. First thing we do, kill all the lawyers. As the saying goes, everybody hates lawyers till they need one. My father told me when I graduated from law school I wasted my education. My little brother told me I was an ambulance chaser and a horrible person till he got hit by a drunk driver who ran a red light. Then, oh my gosh, I need you, David. Please help me. Really? Okay. So, why do people hate lawyers? Maybe because lawsuits. People sue for anything and everything. If you're inventing something, you don't want to be sued for the thing you invented. Anybody, by show of hands, see the movie The Jerk? With, yeah, remember those glasses he had? Yeah, wonderful glasses, made millions of dollars till people all started getting cross-eyed and sued for it. He lost everything. Okay, so all this suing has kind of hurt the reputation of lawyers. Some lawyers go out of their way to get themselves on TV and in the news media, and we don't need to name names. They make us look bad all day long. Okay, we all know who they are. Okay, but the true fact is the number of civil lawsuits has been going down, and it's been going down and down and down and down for decades. And part of the reason it's going down is because lawsuits are expensive, and they cost not just money, but they cost two other invisible costs that most people never will tell you about. The time it sucks out of your life, and as a business person and an inventor, you don't have a lot of time to waste. Putting all your time into a lawsuit rather than into moving your business forwards or working on your product is a waste of time and energy, right? And then there's the emotional cost, which unless you've been through litigation, you don't know how bad that is. It's like being a raccoon stuck in a bear trap. You'll chew your leg off to. So there's lots of reasons lawsuits decrease, but arbitration, binding arbitration clauses in contracts like licensing agreements, mediation where people talk things out, that also helps decrease the amount of litigation in the courts. So there's a lot less civil lawsuits than there ever once used to be. So if you think somebody's going to sue you or somebody has sued you or you think someone's infringing on your intellectual property, it probably wouldn't hurt to consult with an attorney who knows something about that. We all can talk to our friends and family, but they say, you know, sometimes the advice that you pay for is you get what you pay for, right? So most of these lawsuits can be resolved out of court, but sometimes you do need representation. But hey, I haven't been sued. Why would I want to waste my money and my time to go see a lawyer? Well, you can plan ahead and avoid problems, or you can go out there blind and create more problems. Sometimes foresight saves a lot of heartache and expense. So planning ahead is a good idea. Now, If you're planning on starting a business or negotiating a contract or entering into a license agreement, probably the best time to talk to a lawyer is before you sign papers. I can't tell you how many clients of mine who are smarter than me, because they're doctors or engineers, write their own contracts, negotiate their own contracts, sign their own contracts, and when it doesn't work out the way they want, they come run into you. Hey, I gotta sue this guy. He ripped me off. Well, let's see your contract. Oh, really? So, whatever you do, prudent planning can prevent mistakes. You don't want to be the guy at the bottom saying, you know, getting taken advantage of by Slick Willie here. Please sign my contract. Now, what do clients ask when they walk in the door? Do I need a corporation? Can't I just do an LLC? That's a loaded question. You need to know a little more about businesses and business entities before you can even answer that question. One of my favorite things to do is to educate my clients, and we're going to do some of that tonight, where we go through what types of forms a business can take. There's pros and cons to all of it. You can set up a sole proprietorship, you can set up a partnership, a joint venture, a limited liability company, a corporation, or any one of a number of other bizarre entities. But before you do that, you should get some legal advice. Why? Because you might not do it right. Going to LegalZoom is really handy. It's cheap. You can find out stuff in the in-flight magazines on how to incorporate in Nevada for $100. The problem is, you just might have created more legal nightmares for yourself by doing that. You might have created more cost for yourself by doing that, by not getting the good advice up front. You ever been to the mechanics and you've seen the sign on the wall that says, this much to do your transmission, this much if you want to watch, this much if you want to help? Well, when you go to LegalZoom, you just did the, you want to help? Okay? As nice as those things are, it's like this plastic surgeon who does his own nose job in the mirror. You know, sometimes it's not a bright idea. Okay? You also need to be aware of regulations, federal, state, local. There's all kinds of laws and stuff that can impact what you're doing that you might not even know exist till you find out the hard way. And all businesses of any kind need a sounding board. At some point in time, from day one to the end of their business, it doesn't hurt to have some advice. What I tell all of my clients is you need a team of minimally 3 professionals, hopefully 4. Those professionals are your lawyer, your tax person, hopefully an enrolled agent or a CPA, your insurance broker, and if you're making money, your money broker, your money manager. We all want to make enough money that we have to have someone help manage our money, right? But at the very least, you need the first 3 to get off the ground and to do it right and stay out of trouble. Your team. So, forms a business can take. Remember the 3 little pigs? Their first house was a straw house. Big Bad came by and blew it all down. Then they built the stick house. Big Bad came by and blew it all down.